players featured here.
Ironically, I think Henry Wright is on the left.
So, for those of you just joining us, I'm Gavin Verhey here with Joey Pasco of Yo MTG Taps, and we're bringing you live coverage of the Star City Games Open Series in San Jose. As you might have just heard, this is round 4 of 9, and we're watching a match between Kevin Lewis, who's on your right, playing Eldrazi Green, pretty stock, nothing too exciting, and on your left is Henry Wright, with a deck that we think is pretty exciting, and we want to see how it plays out. I built a deck called Darkvine at the start of the Standard season. I wrote an article about it, and it had some of the same interactions. You know, you had Vengevine and Fauna Shaman, but this is really a new direction. It's got a Johnny Goldmane, Squadron Hawk, all kinds of cool things are happening, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this matchup plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exciting.
I'm sorry, what's your name again? Kevin?
So the players look like they're about to take their opening hands, and we'll see what we got going on.
I'm kind of surprised to see Viscera Seer in this list. I'm just so used to seeing that only in vampires, but being able to double kind of as a 1-drop to help enable that Vengevine, and also help dig when in response to removal, seems pretty good. So we've got opening play Colony Garden for a plant token.
So he's playing slowly, thinking carefully, and here comes Razor Verge Thicket for Birds of Paradise.
I love those Scar Stoles. I think they're fantastic in a deck like this, an aggro deck.
They were really underrated at first, and you know the fact that these dual lands are getting played as far back as Extended, and just like in multiples, 4/4, you know, you're playing 8 of them, just shows how powerful they are, because they just give you access to your best cards early, and later on it's, well, okay, I've established what I wanted to do, I can afford to get this land onto the battlefield tapped.
Right, exactly.
Right. So let's see what we got here. So on the left, we've got that's in a Johnny Goldmane. And it's difficult to make out any of the other cards. Here comes down a Swamp. Okay, the Saraseer. It's a pretty innocuous little choice, but I definitely agree that it's pretty interesting. So if the Saraseer is going to come down, let's see what that. Let's see how this deck starts working. It's really cool to see a deck that you don't really know what's going on with it, because you can't just be like, all right, well, he's going to play his 1-drop vampire here, his 2-drop vampire here, his captivating vampire here. All right, I've seen this 1,000 times. But this, it's like, all right, what is he going to do? Like, what's the right play? And that's one of the major advantages of playing rogue decks. You just don't know what people are going to do.
Yeah, it's way more difficult to predict his sequence of turns. So he's got the 2 plant tokens now. So what do you think of this? So this is something that Joe and I were talking about, I think, back when we were doing some GG's live commentary at the Invitational.
Okay.
People using the die to represent the number of tokens rather than just more tokens or some other physical manifestation of that card.
Normally, I prefer when people use more tokens, but if I think something's going to get out of hand, I like when there are numbers. For example, with just Colony Garden, I would normally put multiple plants into play, but the fact that he could have Avenger of Zendikar makes me like that he puts tokens on it, because it's really gets to be a hassle when your opponent's like, Avenger, 8 tokens, play a land, they all get +2/+2, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And if you have to use a couple dice on it, it can be a little frustrating, but it works out. The bigger thing, the only thing kind of bugs me is when people put dice on their creatures, like, that have variable power and toughness, like, I don't know, Tarmogoyf,
right,
to show how big they are. I mean, if my opponent wants to do it, whatever, I don't care, It can lead to a lot of problems because, like, it'll tick up and nobody will notice, and you just continue to think.
Yeah, it's like a misrepresentation of the board state.
Right, exactly, and there are a lot of issues that can come from that, and there's nothing inherently wrong if you just forget to tip up the dice, so it can lead to both players making mistakes, which is something you don't want to happen. But putting numbers on tokens, as long as people both know that they're the number of tokens on the battlefield and not +1/+1 counters, I'm fine with that.
See, I have a problem when, two problems. One, Avenger of Zendikar now, he plays Avenger and then he wants to play a land. Now, where do these, where you have one die representing their power and then one die representing the amount you have, isn't it just easier to just have like a stack? You know what I mean? You have a stack that's a little bit spread out so you can see the number of tokens and then something to represent the power boost that they have. I don't know. Personally, I just prefer cards to represent cards.
I agree. Cards to represent cards are great. Just when there's so many of them. Normally what happens when someone casts Avenger is I'll let them put the counters for the tokens on the Avenger and then number up the number of tokens. Because like for the counters to work, you either have to put an individual counter on all of the tokens, which can be quite overbearing, or you have to stack them and put tokens or counters on, but then you just don't know how many tokens they have.
Right.
As long as I can understand what's going on, that's all I really care about. As long as they're not being like confusing about how it's going on, that's fine. But I can definitely see arguments for why that could be a problem. Like, why are there counters on your Avenger? You attack, you didn't get to 7/7. Like, issues can stem from it. In general, having cards represent cards, I think, is a pretty safe choice.
Yeah, I just don't see too much of a difference between kind of like asking somebody how many lands do you have in play, or can you spread those out so I can see how many lands you have in play, as opposed to can you spread those tokens out so I can see, or put them in rows, like say you have 9 plants, you just put 3 rows of 3 or something like that, something very easy to identify. I personally, looking across at a token with 2, in this particular example, a dice on it with 2 counters on it, I'm looking and I see that as 1 creature, and it's an extra step in my head to think, how many blockers does he have, for example? To go, oh wait, no, so he's got 2 plants. I'm looking, maybe the Oracle dies.
There goes up to 3.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks a lot less threatening when there's just this 1 card there, and then you realize, oh, there's actually 3 plants in this case. I just think it's a clearer representation when people use cards, and even if they have to use like. I always carry around a deck of bicycle cards to represent tokens if you don't have the specific token in play. Like, as long as you only have like a certain kind, like he could have 1 plant token and 1 Eldrazi spawn and then just put the bicycle cards behind it, kind of to represent these are the other plants kind of thing. But anyway, it's just a personal preference.
Yeah. And so we've seen the game develop a little bit more, and it looks like Kevin Lewis is getting to the threshold where he's going to start casting some big fatties, but on the other hand, Henry Wright has started to establish the game. We've got a Johnny Goldmane pumping up that Necrotic Ooze and his whole team. It's gonna start putting a presence on the board. The problem is, will it be fast enough?
Yeah. Titan just looming.
Let's see. Yeah, there's a Kozilek, a Butcher of Truths in Kevin Lewis's hand.
Yeah. To quote Randy Bueller from the classic Chapin-Nassif matchup from Worlds a couple of years ago, he says at one point, there is looming doom, and I just thought it was one of the just classic quotes from a Pro Tour top 8.
Yeah, it feels like that's the story of Standard right now. You're playing against any of these decks with big threats. It's like, they could play Grave Titan next turn. They could play Kozilek next turn. Do they have the Primeval Titan? Like, are they going to cast Emrakul on me, right? Like, every turn you just pass with this trepidation. And here we just saw him draw that Primeval Titan. And that's enough for Kozilek, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, he can cast Kozilek this turn.
Yeah, it looks like it to me.
And that's going to be +4 cards.
Oh gosh. And another Titan.
Another Titan.
So deal with Kozilek, and then we'll play 2 6/6s.
Well, it's gonna be a rough world now.
This is interesting.
Oh man, it's gonna be very hard for Henry Wright to pull out of this one.
Those vigilant little guys are not so threatening.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not even vigilant anymore, but.
I mean, even if you manage to get Gigantomancer into his graveyard, it would still be a far stretch. Because I mean, here comes Kozilek, here comes Primeval Titan. Next turn, you probably have another Eldrazi, or you can Eye of Ugin or something, and it's gonna be hard for Wright to get off the ground. But we'll see. His deck is kind of crazy, so maybe he can pull off enough tricks to make this work.
There's the Kozilek. So
yeah, there goes Kozilek. So he draws 4.
And on top, isn't it?
Did he reveal those cards as he?
No, I don't think he did.
Well, well, he's supposed to.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something we should comment on as far as alerting them. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so this judge comes
is taking
in.
care of it anyway. So
Alright, hold on the match for a second.
All look good to me. So
we'll see what the ruling is
I
here.
might have had to
see if we can hear what the player did.
to reveal them. One at a time. Oh, yeah. I think that's it. Yeah.
Is he trying to figure out what 4 cards he drew? I mean, I don't think that's at this point.
I mean that's not going to
It's
work.
a little too late, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's already put them into his hand.
Right. Now it's not drawing extra cards, so I don't know if that's really cheating, but I can easily see it being some kind of penalty, like warning, reveal your hand or whatever. Especially because the one card, the Primeval Titan, he already knew that he had. So I think there's only really one card that should be hidden at this point.
Yeah.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Because that Oracle of Moldiah has shown all
Do I have to reveal them one at a time?
several cards.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, what happens is every time you draw, you're drawing from the top of your library. So it's like every top card you need to be revealing when you're drawing.
Right. The judge is
What this
confirming
is
what we
it's
were
not
saying.
technically a failure to reveal. It's technically a game rule violation. So that's just a warning. So basically, we can't really back this up, but yeah.
The judge is talking right now.
Those 4 cards went to your hand. So which ones they were. So were those?
These are the 4 on top.
Those are the 4 that were on top. Okay. Well, in that case, those are definitely the ones that you haven't put them in your hand yet.
Well, they're on my hand, but I put them on top.
Okay. Well, we can't really go and back that up because they did enter into your hand. We're going to give you a warning. Be careful with Oracle
Sounds
Moldiah.
like he's getting a warning.
Because there can be instances where it's actually failure
But
to
he did
reveal, and
just
that is a game
explain
loss. That's not just a warning.
That
So,
each card is
maybe
supposed to be
guys-
revealed, and
Sorry about
he can't put them into his hand as he did, and then separate them out. He's getting a warning, although he hasn't revealed his hand. I'm kind of surprised the judge didn't say, "Well, you need to reveal anything."
I mean, it's unlikely to matter at this point, but I still think that it's
You want to keep it clean,
Yeah.
even if it's irrelevant. So now that Kevin is a little on tilt from getting a warning, I think he can still pull this one out with his massive Eldrazi. And I believe he's got 6 cards in his hand now. Yeah, 6. Alright, so a lot of tank happening on Kevin Lewis's side in the think tank.
man. I mean, he's trying to figure out how to get out of this situation, and it's not looking good.
Oh no, is it Kevin Lewis's turn or did he pass?
I mean, he's done everything he can do, right? He cast
Right,
this
I thought he was
trick.
thinking because there wasn't a lot happening
Yeah,
on
no, 'cause,
either end.
yeah.
But
Last
you
turn,
could be right.
Henry Wright cast a Johnny Goldmane and pumped his guys. Now his lands are untapped.
You're right. I see. I just see the 2 tapped lands. What did he play? Or he's about to play something.
Want to show them?
What is that? Oh, Fauna Shaman. Okay.
So I mean, the Fauna Shaman comes down, which would be good if this game had a couple more turns left in it, but it doesn't look to be the case. I mean, that Kozilek's going to come through. It's going to annihilate for 4 permanents, and it's going to be rough going from there.
Maybe they should reprint Survival of the Fittest.
No. It's interesting, though. Final Shaman has seen some play in that role. With Survival Band, I've seen a lot of players trying to figure out, well, can we use Fauna Shaman in that slot? Can the deck still work? And obviously it's a creature, it's fragile, but there are ways to protect your creatures. Yeah. I remember at the Grand Prix earlier this year, Patrick Chapin was playing a deck with 4 Fauna Shaman, 4 Survival of the Fittest.
Right. It is obviously the backup to Survival, or at least was when Survival was legitimate. But
yes, I mean, now obviously it is very fragile, as we just saw.
He just sacrificed it to the Viscera Seer. Was there a removal spell played? I don't think so. I think he just sacked it.
Sometimes
to scry.
Sometimes the brothers just got to scry.
He just wanted to see what was out of his deck.
Like sometimes you just got to know. So at Grand Prix Seattle Tacoma last year. Oh, so you can Necrotic Ooze, right? That makes sense.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
So he's
that's fine.
Using Necrotic Ooze
this
shows
why he's smarter than we are and why he's playing that deck and I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
So at Grand Prix Seattle last year.
Squadron Hawks. That's something pretty decent to.
That's nice. It's going to be good. You can cast it. You can get some permanents to block with or annihilate, but that's still going to be a hard sell. I mean, maybe if you can find a way to get Gigantomancer and serve through, but with those 2 plant tokens on the ground, it's going to be very difficult for any of the ground guys to get through.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his plan is, but it is not as bleak as it appeared.
I mean, it's not as bleak. It is still raining outside, but it might not be in a thunderstorm.
Right.
Anyway, so at Grand Prix Seattle last year, Sam Black is playing fairies, as Sam Black tends to do, and he's showing us his deck, and we're talking about it, and he gets to the last card, and the last card in his deck is Peak, and we're like, Sam, why are you playing a Peak in your fairies deck? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what is the purpose of this? And he looks at me, and he's like, Gavin, sometimes you just want to know. and I guess sometimes you just want to know. Of course, in this case, there's obviously a very legitimate reason for cracking that Viscera Seer, but sometimes you just want to know.
Text up.
Here comes Kozilek, gonna eat up some permanents. If I were a lesser man, I might say something here like nom nom nom.
I believe that's what's on Rashad's shirt today.
Well, classic.
Isn't it nom nom nom? He looks up like, what?
Alright, so some permanents are getting annihilated. It looks like 2 Squadron Hawks can maybe still come down next turn. If he annihilates and keeps 4 mana sources, but I mean that Kozilek's just going to come back for more. He has the hunger, the Annihilator.
I assume that Kozilek is swinging at Henry and not at Ajani, but that is irrelevant.
I would also assume that, but I guess attacking Ajani might even be okay, just because you get a permanent off the board. It's less to annihilate, but at this point, who knows? I might have just served it forward and just shrugged. Really, what matters is that 4 annihilation, because once Henry Wright has no permanence, and it's going to sound very obvious, he has a very low chance of winning the game. So
that's what we need to get, like those World Series of Poker odds, right?
Odds of winning this game.
Right.
0.
As his permanents just deplete.
All right, so he chooses the permanents to sacrifice. And it looks like he's going to keep Ooze, Ajani, Squadron Hawk, and some lands. And, if he draws a land next turn, he can play 2 Hawks, or as is, he can just discard 2 Necrotic Ooze and play Hawk. But, here comes Primeval Titan. Things are only going to go downhill from here. This board state is not looking very friendly.
Oh, okay. So you are fighting my Kozilek. I have 2 Primeval Titans to play with.
And
one.
I mean, we have the deck list in front of us, and there's absolutely nothing here that can really get him out of it. So unless he misregistered his deck and he's secretly packing something for it, it's going to be a hard sell. I suspect we will see game 2 shortly. One more attack from that Kozilek ought to do the trick.
Wow.
Real Titan comes down, gets some lands.
You'd think maybe Henry would want to preserve some time at this point when...
Yeah, I mean, the game has taken a while now, and, you know, you really don't want to draw. And although I don't know if they're going for that position, I mean, Henry's deck is fast and it's going to be able to win the second game, I would imagine. You just don't want to end up in a spot where you end up taking a draw this early because you didn't concede, because really he has no way to get out of this game, and it's not like he's playing for information. If it were the other way around, I could understand. Kevin could be like, well, who knows what this crazy dude is playing? He's got all these weird cards in his deck. I want the game to take longer so I can see what he's doing. But in this case, I mean, there's just no real incentive.
Yeah, it's just kind of...
Just taking up time.
Is he, you know, looking at his list, trying to figure out what his plan is? I mean, Molten Tail Masticore does 4 damage at most, I think, by the time he dies.
He's going to have no permanence. I mean, not actual 0, but fundamental 0.
Yeah.
He's at 7 life. And, I mean, we know there's only more coming where that came from. Next turn, Kevin Lewis is going to be able to drop another Primeval Titan, and maybe I could Ayabuga soon.
For a standard winner box. If you're interested in playing, we just need 4 more people to fill that out.
So
Also, we do have our Tuesday
double Squadron Hawk
challenge coming up at 3 p.m.
ticks down to Shani.
That event will be 3 rounds of Swiss.
All right.
It's $30.
Henry is valiantly attempting to fight back, but it really is a lost cause. It's like
He's fighting Eldrazi Squadron
Come on up and see Tasha right over here on the right side of the stage.
Eldrazi and Titans with Squadron Hawk.
I mean, there is the mentality of never concede, and I think that's a good mentality to have when a game is like this, and if you think there's going to be a time issue, which the game has taken a long time, it's often right just to concede and move it along. Obviously, you can sometimes attempt to draw out warnings from your opponent. You know, you already had a warning, right? You can pick up another one if he accidentally did something sloppy, and we've seen that take some games and start city events in the past.
Yeah.
But assuming that Lewis doesn't you know, pick up any more egregious errors, he's going to be good.
2 abilities triggered at the same time.
Yeah, you got 2 attackers with triggers here.
2 attackers with triggers, going to go get some lands.
Yeah.
Let's see what's Wright got. Let's see what Wright has in his sideboard to bring in here. Linvala, Keeper of Silence, is kind of a neat addition. It turns off Overgrown Battlement, Jaraga, Tree Speaker.
Yeah, both of which we haven't seen in this game, I don't think. But I think we saw them on top of his deck, but we haven't seen them in play.
And they are in Lewis's deck, and they're cards that he's going to keep in, too.
Yeah.
Other than that, maybe that Acidic Slime will come in. But that looks like about it.
He's got a Steel Hellkite in there, which is maybe relevant against, you know, some plant tokens. But I mean, he's not even playing. He's not even playing Avenger. It looks like, so the plant tokens aren't that relevant. I mean, it'll kill Wormcoil Engine tokens, although we haven't seen one yet. I don't know if we see one on top of Kevin's deck, so we don't know if Henry even knows to expect a Wormcoil Engine. I'm just trying to think of maybe some of his options.
A Wormcoil Engine did show up on top of his library.
Oh, did it? Okay.
And yeah, here we go. Finally figures enough is enough.
Yeah.
You can only beat your head against a steel wall so many times before you get a headache. And it's time to go on to game 2.
Wow. Eldrazi and Primeval Titan.
Yes.
Titan and Eldrazi. That's
What a dynamic duo. It's not just Batman and Robin. It's like, I don't know, Galactus to Thor or something, you know? So anyway, for those of you just joining us, this is Gavin Verhey, joined by Joey Pasco, and we're here at the Star City Games Open Series in San Jose. This is round 3, and you are watching Kevin Lewis, who is piloting pretty standard mono green Eldrazi deck, nothing really out of the ordinary. It's very similar to Simon Gortson's build that we saw at Worlds this year with the growth spasms to help ramp up. And on the left, we have Henry Wright, and if you're wondering why you don't recognize either of these players' names, it's just because Wright has such an innovative deck. He is 3-0 currently with a deck that is kind of crazy. It's green, white, black, and it has Fauna Shaman, Bloodghast, Vengevine, Squadron Hawk to use as fuel, a Saraseer to dig and get your cards into the graveyard. It's got Necrotic Ooze in a package with Molten Tail, Massacre, and Gigantomancer, and because, why not, you've got your Johnny Goldmanes, which can really turn your Squadron Hawks and Bloodghast and even just small little mana guys into a legitimate threat going long.
Yeah, he tried to do a little bit of that in Game 1, but it was just too overwhelming facing down.
Yeah, I mean, he was just on the draw and didn't quite have enough gas to get going. But, if he just had gotten maybe a little bit of faster draw and kicked out that Ajani a turn or two earlier, maybe he could have gotten somewhere. So We'll see what happens. I mean, Wright will be on the play this time, and that might switch things up a little bit. I can see a lot of draws in his deck that can win. The thing about the mono green Eldrazi deck is it doesn't have a lot of ways that interact with the opponent's creatures. So if Wright can lay an early Fauna Shaman, that can be huge because he can just go get Vengevines, he can just go get his Gigantomancer, he can find his Necrotic Ooze to power everything on, and that's going to be so huge for him.
How about a Vengevine with a in play with the Gigantomancer in the graveyard with the Necrotic Ooze?
How about anything in play with the Gigantomancer in the graveyard?
I'm just thinking the 7/7 haste.
Yeah, 7/7 haste out of nowhere, and by the way, all my Birds of Paradises are 7/7, all my Squadron Hawks are 7/7. My Vampire Hexmage is 7 power first strike. A lot is going on here. Although I expect those Hex Mages will probably be sideboarded out. The only thing they do is, besides attacking for 2, is just turn off Jiraga Tree Speaker, which isn't really that relevant.
And Chalice.
And Chalice, too. I mean, let's see. So if he's going to bring in those Linvalas, as I expect he will, and I think he'll probably bring in that Acidic Slime, and we could see maybe the Stoneforge Mystic and Sword of Body in mind. The Protected from Green is very relevant. The milling is actually important. If you hit an Eldrazi, everything will shuffle back in, but at the same time, you can maybe get rid of some of the lands for Primeval Titan to search up or something like that. Obviously, it's not like a huge benefit, it's not why you play it, but it could be relevant.
And the tokens can block, can jump block Eldrazi and also be there for the Annihilator triggers, or swing in as a 7/7 if you've got Gigantomancer. But I mean, those tokens can be relevant.
Exactly, and so I think we'll probably see the Hexmage go out. I don't think that really does a lot in this matchup. What do you think about Bloodghast in this matchup? Would you leave it in? It's good because it can swing for 2. It interacts with the Saraseer well, but on the flip side, they're not interacting, so it's never really going to die. It just gets blocked by Overgrown Battlement all day long. You can discard to Fauna Shaman. Obviously, it's basically a free discard.
Yeah, I think he might leave some of them in, if not all of them. I think just the fact that they can recur and off of the Fauna Shaman ability, I think that's kind of part of what this deck, or what makes this deck strong, is being able to discard things like Vengevine and Bloodghast and then still have them come out. Discard one of those and grabbing the Gigantomancer and then playing a land, get the Bloodghast back, and then making it into a 7/7 if you can find a way to get the Gigantomancer in the graveyard quickly.
Another card that might go out, how do you feel about a Johnny Goldmane? Obviously, the +1/+1 counters is huge. You can really press an advantage with an early Squadron Hawk, but at the same time, you're paying 4 mana, you're just distributing some counters. If you don't already have pressure, it's not doing a lot, and maybe you'd rather bank on doing something else on turn 4, like Linvala. I think it's really interesting because looking over this list, I'm actually not totally sure how to sideboard, and it'll be interesting to see how Wright chose to sideboard with this deck. That's, once again, one of the things about rogue decks, we don't know what they're going to do, right?
What's the plan here?
I mean, they know how to play this deck, but Kevin Lewis certainly doesn't know what his opponent's got in his sideboard. He could be bringing in Day of Judgment for all he knows, right?
Exactly.
So you really want to keep an eye on this cool little innovation.
It's very fascinating. Trying to look at the list here.
All right. So both players have their 7s.
We saw Ajani do pretty much very little in Game 1. So
we saw it do very little that game, but on the flip side, it could have done quite a bit too if it had come down at the right time or in the right board state. I still expect maybe some of them are the cards to cut, but we don't know. Looks like it's going to be even harder for Wright, though. He's starting off with the trip to Paris, and not the good kind.
No, not the one coming up in February.
Yeah. Say mulligans down. Doesn't shuffle for that long. Goes for 6 cards. Let's see if these suit him any better. Let's see a Bloodghast. So he did leave some of the Bloodghast in. Alright, so he keeps a 6-card hand, and Lewis keeps a 7, and we're off to the races. A Verdant Catacomb cracked on the first turn. Probably is going to lead into Birds of Paradise, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Or maybe a Viserys here.
Could
oh,
be,
he
yeah.
gets
It's a forest,
yeah,
so it's going to be birds if he has a 1-drop.
Here comes down the birdies.
No, he doesn't have a.
Nope.
Did he just passed? Yeah.
He just did it. I mean, you know, mines.
Yeah.
Oh, he draws the birds, of course.
Right.
Naturally. So
we go
goes for
planes
and here comes
into
Lotus Cobra. And that could maybe give him the fast start he needs. He did mulligan down to 6, but that Cobra's going to give him some options. I'm trying to get a glimpse of what's in his hand. He's keeping it kind of tight, close to the chest.
Yeah, literally.
Exactly. So Everflowing Chalice comes down here. It's going to start.
Is the same sequence of plays Kevin Lewis made last game. I know it's only two turns, but he went turn 1 Garden, turn 2 Chalice last game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good sequence of plays. Those Colony Gardens are really, they're like enhanced Kabir Crossroads. They just gain you extra life, serve as Gatekeeper of Malakir protection. I mean,
where's Inkwell Looter when you need him? He's got those plant tokens that he made that he uses as business cards.
It's true. All right, so Lotus Chroma comes down, and you're going to see what it does this turn. He's cracking the fetch land. That gives him the 5 mana he needs. There's an Ajani at the bottom of his library, so he kept some of them in at least.
Yeah.
Kept in the Squadron Hawk, saw some of those. Kept in the Bloodghast, saw some of those. I wouldn't be surprised if he just shaved a couple cards from his deck. When you're in doubt, sometimes that's a fine thing to do. You just go, you shave one of this, one of that, one of that,
right.
and
With the Fauna Shaman in there, he can tutor up. If he shaves certain creatures,
So, all right, so he got his land, and now let's see what it is. All right, here comes Vengevine up. Is that a foil Vengevine, no less? I think it is. Yes, foil Vengevine.
Very nice.
And here it comes down, serving in for 6, and he's just going to opt to take 6 damage here.
I gotta say, I really miss Vengevine seeing play. Now, I know Kibler was saying something a little while ago about, where has Vengevine been? Where is it? I was thinking about that this morning. He was such a strong card back pre-M11, and then even in Legacy with Survival. But now that these Titans hit Standard and Survival's gone from Legacy, it's not been anywhere near as played. But I love the card. It's one of my favorite green cards ever.
And I think that's why we see some of the resurgence of the control decks, because they have before they had trouble dealing with Vengevine. They could journey it, but it was difficult to deal with. You had your Path to Exiles, your Journey to Nowheres, but now you can just play a Grave Titan or something, right?
Exactly.
And shut it down entirely.
Elspeth, -2.
Exactly. There's a bunch of chump blockers.
Exactly.
Although I have a love affair with Vengevine. It's another card I'm a big fan of. And if you want to see a lot of Vengevine decks, you should check out my Star City Games article going up on Monday.
So there's the chump block for Vengevine.
Why did Vengevine just get put into the graveyard? What did I miss?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, good. Oh, he's tapped, though.
The Vengevine is tapped. He's not doing any blocking. All right. I'm glad we got that cleared up.
Yeah. So he's
Vengevine's just so eager to go into the graveyard. And here comes the Necrotic Ooze, which, he's still a 4/3. He can still serve.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing people forget about Necrotic Ooze. It does have power and toughness.
Yeah, it's a pretty sizable body on top of everything else.
Yeah.
I mean,
a 4/3 for 4. I mean, it's Vengevine.
I mean, I remember, a couple years ago, if we got a 4/4 for 4, we were, pretty happy with it.
I know.
A minor ability, and this is a pretty strong ability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so.
Remember Obstinate Bailoff? I mean, not Obstinate Bailoff, Ravenous
Bailoff,
Bailoff.
right? You're like, all right, well, I guess I can sacrifice him. And obviously, you could do it a little differently, right? You had damage on the stack.
Yeah, that's true. Block and then sack.
Block and then sacrifice. But. So there's Oracle Moldiah, which has been over there ramping up Lewis, and we now see there's an Acidic Slime on top of his deck. But maybe Wright will be able to get the damage he needs this game. He's got 2 4/3s threatened coming and bash this turn, and I feel like that plant may finally take one for the team. Oh,
Well, he already jumped with one plant.
we got some action.
He's got another-
Summoning trap. We know there's already at least one target,
Right.
if not more. All right. So he does not have to reveal for the summoning trap.
Yeah, that's a good thing to note. It's such a confusing thing with the.
They're looking at a
they're
double
checking,
check.
right? Because
Yeah.
we just had this issue.
Cards like Oracle Moldiah are always tricky with that interaction. Or,
Yeah.
for example, Jace with Oracle Moldiah.
Right.
Like, how
Halimar
does this
Depths.
work?
Another
Like
one.
Halimar Depths, exactly. So what do we got over there? He hasn't slammed anything into play yet.
Right,
I
so
see a wall of Tangle Cord and an Acidic Slime.
acidic slime seems like a
Yeah, I think it's gotta be
blowout
slime.
right now.
And I bet Henry Wright is breathing a sigh of relief, though, that Acidic Slime
That's true.
is not like a Kozilek Butcher of Truths.
Right.
Or perhaps, Primeval Titan. Alright, so the Slime's going to take out a land, which might, hopefully Wright didn't need that land to cast anything in the second main phase.
Yeah. What land is that?
And he even knew that Slime was on top, too, so he probably should have played
Right.
around it if he had the chance. Although I can also respect, if he plays his creatures first, then he can't return Vengevine, which is the problem.
Yeah.
So the plant token blocks the Vengevine, the Slime's going to take out the Ooze, in something only Conley Woods would enjoy. And, let's see what happens here. So it looks like we've got another Birds. And I think then that's going to be a pass.
I'm surprised. I guess he's trying to make up that mana, but
Yeah. I mean, he's got Bloodghast in his hand, but he can't cast it
yeah, without the birds, without the double birds,
without the double birds. Did he take down a forest?
I think he
With
took
that
down a
Acidic Slime?
forest,
Okay.
yeah.
So he couldn't cast it in the first place. With double birds, he can start getting online, but once again, it might be a case of too little, too late. There's nothing yet in Kevin Lewis's hand that's threatening. He's just going to deploy Wall of Tingle Cord here, but it's only a matter of time with all the digging he has that he finds something. Here comes Explore to dig even further towards the threat. Oh, and there it is, the Primeval Titan. It's not coming down this turn, but next turn he's going to have to deal with that 6/6.
we need to get that sound effect, Rashad, of Randy Bueller saying, "There is looming doom." And just replay it every time somebody's got something on top with the Oracle of Moldiah.
That'd be kind of cool. We just have our soundboard here, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, like Lightning Helix button and
Yeah.
like Cruel Ultimatum button and like Looming Doom button, or like all this great stuff, right? We have like
Right.
some OSUP buttons for added commentary, right? Like whenever we feel like we need something spicy,
It's not a tumor.
right?
That's obviously not OSIP, but more like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well,
The kindergarten cop quotes.
They were brothers. All right.
So it looks like not much in Kevin Lewis's hand. He's got a Chalice Forest.
He has nothing in his hand, but that Primeval Titan on the top is going to be a problem. He's going to deploy this Chalice for a bunch.
Now, but depending on what was sided in, interestingly, it looks to me like Kevin Lewis actually has more interaction with his opponent's deck, taking into account the sideboard, than Henry Wright does. But both of them have acidic slimes. It just looks like Lewis has the option of Terastodon and Tumble Magnet to kind of stop some creatures as well. So I don't know if he sided in the Tumble Magnet or not, but
Yeah, I mean, Henry Wright doesn't have any really good way to kill a creature, so when that Primeval Titan comes down, it's staying down, and that is going to be a big problem. And I mean, that Vengevine gets blocked, pushes through for 2, which is very important, but... Alright, well here comes Fauna Shaman. That might be able to do something.
unfortunately he doesn't have an
So,
active
you know-
Necrotic Ooze right now.
Yeah, and he chose not to cast the Bloodghast, so he can discard it to the Fauna Shaman. That makes sense.
Yeah. There's one card in his hand, I think,
I think he's just got one card. I think it's that
which is the
Bloodghast.
Bloodghast, yeah.
Although I feel like
And
he should have 2, but maybe not.
We know Lewis has the Forest, Titan, and Chalice.
All right.
All right, we're getting
Joining us in our booth is the wonderful Jerry Thompson. Jerry, we are watching this green-white-black homebrew deck with Squadron Hawks and Vengevines and a Johnny Goldmane and Necrotic Ooze and Giganomancer.
Johnny Goldman.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's awesome.
Fighting against this mono-green Eldrazi deck, and he had a good start this game, but it looks like Mono Green's slowly starting to take control. Mule Titan just came down, and it might start getting a little dicey. How'd your round go, Jerry?
I won this round. Defeated a Coggo deck with mono black vampires.
Skill intensive.
Yeah.
So we are 3-1. So that, and by we, I mean Jerry Thompson.
Right.
We saw you last round. What was your sideboarding thoughts on how you boarded that round? You brought in Duress, you brought in Vampire, Hexmage. Like, what were you going at?
I didn't bring in Duress for game 2 until I saw that he had a full blow to Mark Trails, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Then maybe I should have only brought in 2. Like, I figured if I only bring in 3, maybe I'll just draw like 1 per game, and that's about how many I want. But then I ended up drawing all 3, which sucked.
Yeah, we saw that. I was like, there's no way he brought in more than 2, and then you drew the third one.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of rough. But like Hexmage is good against Goblin Guide and stuff like that. Like, it's bad against his pingers, but so are the Pulse Trackers that I'm taking out.
Right, exactly.
Like that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hoping you would be able to get back in it after you drew the Disfigured Doomblade, but you just managed to get back. But you battled back. You are now 3-1, and 5 more rounds to go. And if anyone can do it, it's going to be you. So, out of many of the players in this room.
I thought that last week too. I was 7-0, and then I went 0-2.
We'll have to get you in here when you get here.
So what's you got to get him out of this?
Not very much. There's an Emrakul the Aeon's Torn on top of Kevin Lewis's deck, and how much mana is that? You've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Exactly 15.
How convenient.
Yeah.
I guess you could also attack with Mule Titan and go find an Ayabugan too to give it the extra. So,
this is just Eldrazi beat down, right?
Counting it up right now. Emrakul's going to come down, and that's going to probably be the game. I mean, he's trying with his Fauna Shaman, but that's not going to do a lot. How do you feel about Eldrazi Green in the current metagame? A lot of people went toward Valakut after your big win with it, after you really showed off how good it was. And after Worlds, Valakut was popular for a little while, and now we're seeing some Eldrazi Green come back. Like, what do you think about that?
I really like what Kevin's doing here with the Oracles and stuff like that. I think that's kind of what you need to make that deck good. Just have your deck be good, even if you're getting like Spreading Season and stuff. Like Oracle is a card that can just fight through all that stuff and create a large advantage over a couple turns, and that definitely helps. And it seems like playing Valakut, I played it a little bit recently, and with all the tech edges and Spreading Seas and like anti-Primeval Titan stuff running around, it's like I'm a mono green deck with 15 mountains in my deck. Like the Valakuts don't even get activated unless I'm winning really big. But normally it's just like they spread my land and stuff like that. So I think if I were to play a ramp deck, maybe Eldrazi Green is probably the place to be.
Yeah. I mean, you can still get your lands, Spreading Seas or whatever, your eyes and your temples, but it doesn't nearly throw you off as much as when you can't actually cast any of your spells.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, Chapin, I think, said in his Prime Directive article last week about isn't Eldrazi Green just a bad Valakut deck? So
it is in a vacuum. It definitely is. It's at least a turn slower, but now when there's so much hate for Valakut, if you want to stick to a ramp strategy,
interesting. So the Henry Wright fetches up Sword of Body in Mind, which could mill that Emrakul away. Because I don't think he has the mana to use it. I think he's short because he had to cast the Mystic. Even then he's short. I think he just cast the Mystic to go find it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, he had 3 lands tapped. Then maybe not.
Or if he has Fetchland Bird.
There's normal lands.
There's 1, 2.
So that's short. That's 1 short.
That's not quite going to do it. He brings back his Blood Gas. He's going to play it to be classy.
Right, but not going to be able to equip it.
It's a little short. All right, and Emrakul's going to come down here, and I think that's going to be that's going to be it.
We still have plenty of stuff that can happen though, so we have to keep watching because it's sweet.
Yeah, this is actually like the greatest part, right? Like,
all right, Force.
Right.
We need those.
Well, if there was any doubt whether he could play the Emrakul.
So last game, Henry Wright was facing down Kozilek. He got attacked 3 or 4 times by Kozilek, 3 times I think.
Still won?
No, he lost.
And he just played through it all. He had like 2 permanents and It was like, all right.
He's trying to play.
So,
and a Titan, though.
So obviously,
there was a Primeval
obviously-
Titan and a Kozilek.
Right,
on
Primeval
board.
Titan and a Kozilek. So obviously there is some value in that. We saw Kevin Lewis pick up a warning earlier in the match, so maybe he wants to see in, see if he can get a game loss or something. But how many times do you think Emrakul is going to attack this game?
Well, might only take one. Like Titan's going to get in this turn, probably going to trample over for a little bit, and then maybe Emrakul will actually leave.
Here comes Titan. Find 2 lands because it's very necessary.
That is the face of someone going, Emrakul has Annihilator how much?
Yep, exactly. That is not the face you want to be
got-
wearing.
What does he
at
have?
the tournament.
11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's got 11 permanents in play from what I can tell. It's going to be down to 5.
Emrakul is just ridiculous on so many levels. It has
Yeah.
so many.
I don't think I've ever hardcast Titan.
Only polymorphed into it. I know you're good at that one.
I've definitely done that. Probably show and tell it a few times.
There were times back I was playing blue-green polymorph in standard for a while when it was popular. Well, popular
Bad.
in quotes. Yeah, bad. And it was bad last season. And I ended up finding out the deck was bad. But in the process, I definitely hardcast Emrakul off Awakening Zone a couple times.
Okay.
One game I just didn't even have Awakening Zone. I just like jammed it out there. I could have killed him with polymorph multiple times, but he was like 4x spreading seas gunned, and I was like, nice. Gotta get you with Emrakul.
Looks like Emrakul's only going to attack with the same.
Well, it's going to be rough for Henry Wright. Maybe let's see if we can get Henry Wright in the booth, and let's see if we can get him to tell us about his deck, because it's a little trippy. I'm curious about some of his decisions.
You know, I just want to see.
Alright, so Emrakul's down, he untapped his Primeval Titan, and here they come.
That is disgusting.
Do you have any responses? No?
Right.
I'd probably
I'm
want to
gonna
search up lands.
get some lands.
Yeah,
Good
that's
play,
fair.
good play.
Yeah, let's get
Alright, then there we go.
Just make him search up the lands, and then I'm just gonna make you do it.
Double checks to make sure he's conceding instead of just picking up his permanents before he
Yeah.
puts his hand in.
Yeah, I had a
And,
situation like that. Luckily, it was in a casual game, but I